Hi, Jason from Sightsolutions here. Here again with another video in our Reflow series. In our last video we set up some equipment pages and allocated all of the equipment within our project, within our Niagara station, using Reflow point templates. So now in this video we're going to take a look at how we can assign that equipment to a floor plan and build that out from there. So let's go and get started. Okay, so let's have a look at floor plan building. So as usual, we're in our web page, we're in Reflow config in the top right hand corner, and we now want to go to buildings. So if we click on buildings, and in this case I'm going to look to do floor 1 on building 1, so I want to head to building 1 and then head to floors in the subnav menu, and then you will access the floor builder from there. Before I click on that though, just to make a note, since the last video where we only had some equipment for fan coil units, I've now onboarded within this building some air quality sensors and some occupancy sensors. So we're going to fulfill all of that equipment within the floor plan on the next page. So let's do that. So now we're presented with all of the floors, and I'm interested in doing floor 1. So we'll go to look to do floor 1. So just click on that. And as usual, I'm going to keep everything in regards to switches in the default setting. So feel free in your own project to make changes to these as you see. And if you click or hover over the question mark, you can see a little bit of an idea of what these things do. So have a play around with these. I'm not going to go into too much detail of those. What is brilliant about Reflow is that you can't break anything. It is Boolean switches, and you can kind of see how those things look to suit your requirement for your project. So again, feel free to do that. So thumbnail photo, let's choose our photo for our thumbnail. So I'm going to go into my station. I'm going to actually select the floor plan that I'm looking to use. Let's see if that works, because it is pretty big in terms of pixels, but we'll give it a go. There we go. Now that's given it a nice little tile feel, nice level of look and feel for it. So I'm going to now keep my floor plan type as a reflow, because we want that responsive goodness. And again, all this is staying as default. And then I'm going to go into my floor plan builder. So to recap, if we go back through the menus, because it is tucked away to get to it, but it's in safekeeping in that place. We click on buildings, we click to the building that we want to get to, and then it's the floors, and then the floor you want, and then floor plan builder. Okay, so let's click on that. Now we are in the floor plan builder environment. So currently we've got a blank page, there's nothing there. Let's add in our floor plan as I did for the thumbnail, so we'll use that one as well. So we'll come up into the top right hand corner up here, click on canvas settings, and then we want to insert a canvas image. So we go to browse, and we go into our station, and I will select that there, and we'll bring that in, and there we go. That's our canvas, that's our backdrop, and this is where we're going to be applying our equipment. Now, one of the features in Reflow 1.6 that have been recently introduced, which is great news, is they have brought in some quality of life improvements. And what I mean by those is that there's just some little tweaks that they've made, makes bringing in equipment and selecting and locking things a little bit easier. So in the top right hand corner, there's a tab now called macros. So if you click on that, and there are a number of macros that you can run just to make bringing things in or deleting things a little bit easier. Now these are more globally, and they'll bring everything in terms of labels. So all of your equipment that's assigned to a floor and to the building that it's in, if you click run the macro, it'll bring everything in. So that's fine, but I can pretty much guarantee, as we will now see, that that's going to be pretty hectic on the page. But if you do have a small floor plan with a number of items and you don't want to go off and individually find them, you can bring them in straight away. So that's the first kind of look of how that will present itself, but we'll make some adjustments and tailor this to our project and how we want. So I'm going to remove those. So again, back up into my macro, I'm going to delete all of those. get a prompt to ask me if I want to do that. I'm going to click yes or delete. So good to have the macros in the corner there. So in my layout options, have a little look around through these tabs, get familiar with them. As I say, we probably won't cover every single item in here in great detail. We'll just get a good flavour of what this is about and bring some items in. So right at the beginning, if I just come back out, I now have within my project some fan coil units, air quality sensors, and occupancy sensors. On the previous video, we brought in some fan coil units, but since then, I brought in some other layers of equipment that we can leverage on the floor planner page. Let's go back to that. We can see it in the list format of our equipment, but now we want to get a bit of a better representation of how that looks on the floor. Let's go back into our floor plan builder, and here's our backdrop. So when we think about equipment, we think about the types, and we've got fan coil units, air quality sensors, and desk occupancy sensors. But one great thing about the floor plan builder is that you can assign that equipment to states. Now, when you add a state, it's essentially a layer. So what you're going to do, you're going to add your equipment to a layer, and then that will automatically give you an option in the top right hand corner when you come all the way back out of Floor Builder Planner, and that will allow you to switch off those layers. So if you do have a lot of equipment on your floor plan, you're able to cycle through those states, and you don't necessarily have to have just equipment types of the same. You can mix and match them. So if your end user or your client or whoever you're building this for wants to see certain things in certain scenarios, this is where you build that in states here. So we've got our base layer. So I'm going to change this to fan coil units. Okay, and then I'm going to add another state. One thing you need to remember is to press enter. Let's do that. So again, now we have air quality sensors. Let's add another state. No, I did it again. I didn't press enter. Remember to press enter. There we go. And then put desk. Just call it desks. And press enter. Okay, so now we want to add, don't want to add a new state. We want to add some labels or equipment to our states. So without further ado, let's insert a label or a reflow device. We click on that, and that adds in a default blank label with nothing attached to it. So we can resize this to however we want. Now, Reflow is going to probably set this to a default size that is best suited for the size of your backdrop. So it'll probably look very lost on the page if we go any smaller than that. So it's making its best judgments to present that to you in the best way. This on the left hand side is the accent. So the accent width can be adjusted within the canvas settings. Now every time I come in here I can never spot it. It might be the layout options actually. Telling a small lie, it's under layout options, so apologies. So the accent width, this is where you can change the size of that, so you can reduce that down. I'm going to set mine to 20. Now the accent color can be changed, and it can be added to a dynamic point to represent that device's state on the network. So if you're familiar with working in Niagara, you can leverage the various colors and states to your labels when you're working on a PX page. Now this does the same thing. What we want to do is assign that, or I will show you how to do that. Again, as if you've been following the video series, this is dummy data within folders in a normal station, so it's not actually connected to anything on the network, but we can demonstrate it anyway. So coming down into the properties of this label, if we click on bindings, we want to add it to a device. So a reflow device is where we've brought everything in as equipment. So fan coil unit 1, and then it's going to default to its featured point, which was the space temp that we set up previously. And if we go to style, the accent color is its primary color, so that is leveraged from the theme that you set up right at the beginning of your project. And if we open that, you've got your secondary colors, your custom, dynamic, and transparent. So I'm going to click on dynamic, and then that then gives you the option next to style in another tab called dynamic color. And I'm not going to have that reference to a point. Now feel free, if you want to change that accent color to be representing a specific point, you may want to change it for heating or cooling mode for that device. The end user might want to see if it's in heating or cooling mode, just from visually looking at it. I'm going to change my color based pull down menu to be on status, and as you can see, the default color is blue, and it pulls your Niagara colors down for the various states of that point that would live in a device on a network, whether that be BACnet or perhaps the Niagara network itself. Now you can obviously change these colors, but I'm going to keep them as default. So yeah, that's where you can change that for the status, which is very helpful, because at a glance you can see that perhaps you've got some points overridden or in fault, or anything's down. Now we've kind of set up one just briefly on its own, but there's something I just want to highlight. If we go back to the properties tab, now when you add a device in or a label in from scratch and then add the device manually to it, it's going to keep giving it a title of label 1. Now if you want to start changing these labels, you're going to have to do them multiple times. I'm all about doing things efficiently and quickly. Maybe not in the demonstration of the video, because I do talk a bit, but I want to try and do this as quickly as possible and onboard those. The one thing I want to show, if I just delete that, so delete that fan coil unit. There we go. And if we go back to macros, and now I'm going to just rush all the equipment in, but there is a way that you can, and you could probably see it over here. If you add this item in, so it might be worth making a note of this, because this is going to help you greatly when you're adding things in manually. So when you get one right, obviously we're going to duplicate that. If you put $device in as your title and $room, that's going to automatically pull through the label of that piece of equipment. So if you look on the right hand side here where these are highlighted, you can see that it's already pulled in its equipment name. Now we haven't assigned any rooms, so rather than do them individually on the graphic or in this box here, you can automatically pull them through from your template. Now there may be, when you're doing a new project, room names may change. So I tend to keep everything within the points template and do it there. And then just keep this default $room, and then that will automatically pull it through for you. So we'll make a note of that. So we want $device and $room. I'm going to delete all those off. I'm going to quickly add another device, add these in, and we'll be ready to go and copy and paste the rest of them in. So let's fast forward to that, because you don't want to see me do that, and then we'll have that ready to go to start copy and pasting those out. All right, and as if by magic, I've done you the favor of copying and pasting them out before we came back. So here we are. They're all fully in now, and what you can do is you can right click and you can copy bindings or properties, action style, etc. I've just duplicated them. So all of these now for this floor are added in. Now one little item, if I click on one, before we disappeared and now we are back and they're here, I forgot to mention that in info line 2, if you put in $point, that's going to pull in the point name of the featured point. Now previously, if you do rewind the video back a little bit, you'll see that that label was actually missing, but now we've added in $point, because I forgot to do that. That's in there now, and and we've got the point label in there. So that will pull through the featured point, or the point name that is assigned within the label. Okay, so they're all there now. So we're going to quickly look at states. Now, if you remember, just a little while ago, we added our states in for all our devices that we will be bringing in. Now, when you do add your devices in, they will automatically default to every state. So no matter which one you click on, they are all listed. Now, the idea of this is, like I said, is we want to be able to switch layers off. So if you consider states to be layers, that's how we do that. So we're currently set to the fan coil units state here. And on the right hand side here, you can see this little eye. And this indicates that they are visible within this state. So what we want to do is change the state to air quality sensors. And then we want to make them invisible when we are viewing the air quality sensors. And then we'll also do the same for desks. So these will reappear because they're visible in the desks state. And we'll go back through them and turn them off. And now when we go through our states and we click fan coil units, they appear. And then once we have onboarded the air quality sensors, they will appear there. So that's something to consider to do that. So you've seen a demonstration there of how to bring in your equipment and to change some basic settings with regards to accents and some featured points and automatic labels being pulled in. Now, just to mention on that, that is a new feature within this version of Reflow 1.6, and that's proven to be very handy when you're duplicating and wanting to make changes from point template level rather than having to change labels in two places, or on your graphic or on your points template. Great way of doing that. So that's a lovely new quality of life feature for this version of Reflow 1.6. So I'm going to stop it there. And again, we'll do a quick fast forward, and I'm going to bring everything on the page, all of my equipment onto the page, and then we'll have a quick look at how to set up zones to a dynamic view. And we'll be pretty much wrapping it up there. So we'll quickly do that, and I'll see you in a second. All right, the beauties of time travel. So, added all the equipment in now. Fan coil units are in. Air quality sensors are in. And I've also added desk occupancy sensors with some zones to indicate occupancy of that. We'll come back to that in a moment. Let's go back to fan coil units. Now I want to add a zone to this room here in the bottom left hand corner. Let's click on draw a zone. So make a note of the zone drawing controls up here in the top left. So we're going to draw a zone here. So 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks. You get the idea. And there we go. And then enter to finish. Alright, so now we got our zone in here. But I want to make it change color based on the average space temp within this room. Now obviously there's only one fan coil unit in here, so I could have used a single point. But we're going to add them to all these different spaces here. But we'll start with this one. Now before we start, you can see that the zone is actually above the fan coil unit. So when I try and click, if I wanted to try and click on that fan coil unit to get to its equipment page, I wouldn't be able to do that. What you need to do is come into your Elements tab on the right hand side when you're in the correct state, and drag that all the way down below. Make sure that the items that you want to be above that, so you can get to that. So now I can click on this item when it's finished and get to that equipment page. That's one thing to consider. So now, clicking on the zone, we go to the properties. We want to call this Office 1 zone, just so we've got a label name, so we can identify that in our elements. And got an action. Now, default is a hyperlink, and because there isn't one selected to go anywhere, it's not going to do anything. But if you did want it to click to go somewhere, perhaps you have a list of equipment that you might want to get to a summary view. So for example, in this office here, when we put a zone on here, you could click the zone, it could take you to a summary view of all of those particular fan coil units. The options there for that. So we want to just change the temperature. So we want to choose our color again to be dynamic. And then in our dynamic colors tab, we want to select the point of the average space temp. So you can go through this menu for a quick fire. If you've got quite a few layers and folders, it does extend out a little bit. So click the magnifying glass and that's going to take you over your station. But now I want to find my average space temp. Now remember, again, this is a dummy station, so it's not actually live data as such. So I'm going to make some changes manually and we should see those changes. So let's come down to this. I've made a little logic folder and let's click space temp average 1 as my value. Okay, so let's look at the colors now. So when we're within deviation, i.e. we're happy that we're at set point, so when that space temp average 1, now I know there's obviously only one device in here, but for the likes of these, we'll just use the same point to keep everything the same. But when we're in deviation and we're happy, or the system's happy that the temperature is where it should be, we want that to be green. So we're happy. If we're above, i.e. we're too warm and we're above the temperature set by the average, we want to make that red. So we'll make that one red. And then if we're below average, we want that to be blue, and it already is. That's great. So we're going to keep that target type as a static number for the time being, but we want the target value to be 21. So that's set to that for the minute. And the deviation, to see incremental changes of color between those two colors, between green, red and blue, you can set here, but I'm going to set them to 2. The way this works now, if you're familiar with this type of thing, it would make sense to you. So currently, we don't have the average on the screen. So because it's only a single unit, the space temp is actually showing 25. There's 25 in the minute, and that will make it 3 degrees higher than 21. So the deviation is 3, and we want to see changes on 2. So it's gone red. So that's how you can do it to a static number. But you might want to keep your control in there, i.e. your logic. So you want to make sure, because what you might find, if you don't link it to an actual set point, so people change set points, it's not going to update in the graphic. So we actually can assign the target type to another Niagara point, which we can call, or we can call it anything, but I'm going to link it to where that is. We're going to change that to a global set point. So we go off and find that, and that will be in the same folder. Go back to my logic folder, and then I've got a global space set point 1. I'll click on that one. Okay. Now, those are mapped, but I don't actually know what the values are. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to quickly add a label, and we can make some adjustments and see those changes. And that's pretty much how you would do a zone. So I'm going to quickly fast forward, and those points will be on there, and we'll have a quick look at that. And then we'll have a look at desks, and then that will be where we're going to be. So back in a second. Okay, we're back. Now, I've added the global temp set point and the space temp average. So now we can see what those values are. So currently, the set point is at 21, and the actual average is 21, because obviously there's only one device. So it's just doing a passive straight through of 21 there. So we're at set point, and the zone is green. If we go into my station, and we change the space temp, because in my wire sheet logic, the output of this space temp is going into the average block, because I've kept my logic all the same between my various folders. So if we change the space temp now to be higher than the global temp set point, let's say 26, that will now change to red. Okay, that's good. And now if we come back down lower than the set point of 21 and call it maybe 18, see now we're too cold. We're away from that 21 set point. But if we do change the global temp set point, so if I come back into my logic and I change this to match 18, there you go. It's gone back and saying, yeah, I'm all good. I'm the temperature I should be. So that's how you can do a zone and some dynamic colors on that. Let's quickly fold this up. So I did mention about the desks, so I'll quickly touch on that. So let's quickly check my states. Yeah, so I've got a little rogue label there, so I want to make sure that that is removed from that layer. Yeah, so that's still visible, so we'll get rid of that. So a little bit of an exercise. And let's go over to desks. Okay, so desks are pretty much the same. I've added zones to each one. And if we are to click on one and we look at the properties of desk one, the action, sorry, the style is dynamic. The dynamic colors are blue for default, true is red, and false is green. And we've linked that to a Boolean which lives in the logic. So it's just a desk 1, desk 2. So this is coming from the equipment within Reflow. And what we can do, which I didn't mention, but is very good for desks. Now, it does tell you colors of which are occupied, which are available and which are occupied. So red is occupied and green are available. So as we can see, that office is not very busy. Maybe everyone's out for lunch. We can go to canvas settings and we can click on, layout options. I always get those two confused. And then we can click on enable data tooltips. Now what that's going to do is when we hover over, we can get the label then, and that gives you a little bit more information. So that about covers it for those. Thank you for your patience and time. We've gone through, we've added some fan core units to the pages, and we've talked about states. And there's my little bit of logic there. I love it when that pops up when I'm doing a video. Let's go back to that. So yeah, we've done that. We've added everything in. We've gone through states and we can rotate through the elements there. And that is pretty much ready to go. So what I'll quickly do now, if we come back out of the floor builder and we go all the way back, come out of it, let's go all the way back, all the way back. Okay, so let's just do a little navigation into that. So we go to building 1, see our floor 1 is ready to go. We'll click on that. And now there it is in all its glory. So why not? Let's look at that in an even better glory of being on a full-size page. There we go. That's how you can view the items. Now I mentioned about the states. That's actually in the top right hand corner here. So as we set those out earlier, you can now rotate between those and get to the items that you want. And now you can see that everything's coming through. We can see the information we require. And we can then go through the floors, but obviously we've only done floor 1. And what we want to do now is change that to fan core units. And we've got the key information that we want on there. And at a glance, we can see the accent colors and how those are behaving. We can see the zones. You can also see that label coming through on the visible zone label there. And if we want to go and check that equipment, we click on fan core unit 3 and there we go. That's it, guys. That's how we do it. Very intuitive. Reflow 1.6. So a good amount covered there. If you feel that anything that I have covered in these videos you would like some more information on, please do let us know down in the comments below, and please do make sure to like and subscribe. In the next video we will look at custom pages and how we can build out some dashboards based on some of the equipment. And if you'd like some further information, please do head to NiagaraMods.com or our website, which is onesite.solutions. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.